Welcome back to the Budding Author Podcast with me, Simon Ward, your host. Today, we're talking to Martin Best, and he is the Prince of the Paranormal. Martin, welcome to the show. How you doing?
Very well, thank you. Pleasure to be here.
The Prince of the Paranormal. Reading up on your bio and that sort of stuff, you've had quite an interesting life so far, sort of growing up in a haunted house. Is that right?
Yes, that's quite true. Yes.
What was that like growing up in that environment?
It had its moments. I suppose growing up in it, it becomes relatively normal.
Yeah.
As a young child, it didn't feel particularly unusual. It's only when you start telling people who don't live in a haunted house that it starts to seem rather strange.
So, what kind of happenings were sort of evident in that?
Well, things moved inexplicably. My sister and I both saw full bodied apparitions. We had disembodied voices. My mother saw several apparitions. I mean, this is over the course of the 12 years that I lived there.
Yeah.
Yes, it was fairly consistent. It was quite an interesting place to live, and it gave me what has turned into a lifelong interest. My wife would say obsession with the
I think
supernatural.
obsessions aren't that bad, are they? Really, you can sort of depends on what the obsession is, obviously. But I mean,
Quite,
obsessions are not necessarily a bad thing. Um, I think a lot of people, myself included, in our very young years, have a sort of like a pretend friend, like a sort of invisible friend sort of thing. And you
sure.
actually had an invisible friend for the first 12 years. So that's a more pointed situation. And your mum went through some trauma as well, didn't she? In the Lurking Man, talking about her childhood trauma. What was that about?
Yeah, my mum. I think the worst thing that happened to her, she came awake in the middle of the night to find a woman standing beside the bed and frightened the life out of her naturally. And she tried to wake my father up, who didn't wake up. Yes, and yeah, that made a very lasting impression on her, to say the least.
Well, I think guys generally sleep through most things. I can remember a few years ago we had a sort of a tremor here, and
Yeah.
we're in the Midlands, and we're sort of not known for them really. But my wife was sort of awake. The pictures on the wall were rattling and that sort of stuff, and I slept through it all. So that's which is typical bloke as well.
Yeah.
Um, just we want to talk about Michelle's competition and the merits of recognition as an author, because we're not all going to be J.K. Rowling's, as we know, but just a little bit more. You went mobile DJ at one point when I used to DJ,
All right. Yep. No,
so
I
that's
did it for well, best part of 20 years.
yeah, probably longer for me, to be
Oh,
honest.
really?
Probably, yeah, I loved it. I did. When the sleep became more important than the money,
Yeah.
kids and that sort of thing. What first got you into the writing then? Because obviously through the apparitions and that sort of stuff, was that just a need to get that down and sort of record it? Is that what it was?
Um, well, I've always had, well, my parents would say, an overactive imagination, and I've written since I was pretty much able to write. I didn't pursue it seriously until far later in life, but I have always written stories on and off, and I've still got piles and piles of handwritten A4 paper lurking all over the place that are a testament to that.
And so, have you got a lot of short stories? Because I was talking to someone recently, Laura Frost, about sort of the importance of short stories and a way to gain traction by writing short stories and entering competitions. What's your stance on that?
Yeah, I think there's certainly merit in that. The first three things that I actually published were all short stories.
Okay.
I think it helps certainly to focus what you're about as a writer. I think it crystallizes ideas in the first place. Certainly, what starts out as a short story. I mean, for me specifically, it turned into a 6-book series that came from one short story.
That's the
So yeah.
characters taking over again, isn't it? We love it when they do that.
Oh yes, yeah. I mean, I wrote what was the third short story, the novice ghost hunter. My daughter said to me, "You really ought to do something with that," and it became a 6-book series, the Ghost Hunter series,
Yeah.
and then that spawned a further young adult series, which led to the book which won Michelle's competition, the Baby Farmer's Ghost.
Oh, fantastic. So what made you enter the competition for Michelle Cobbett's competition?
Well, I know Michelle's a very respected member of the independent author community, and yes, it certainly was something that I was interested in doing, and I knew that if she read it and liked it, then it would carry some weight, certainly.
That's it. It's gained traction, doesn't it, and recognition. And we
Yeah,
sort of touched on it
absolutely.
really. I'll say book sales is sort of a challenge for most independent authors and traditionally published authors too, really. So sometimes we need to look past the sort of financial gain from a million book sales and find other ways to sort of gain sort of recognition for our work. And I think competitions are the perfect way to do that, aren't they?
Yes. Oh, certainly. Yeah. I think being reviewed by your peers who will give you an honest opinion on what you're doing and how well you're doing it is an extremely valuable resource.
Yeah, that's it. We sort of look for champions in our writing. Obviously, it sounds like your daughter's sort of quite a champion for what you're doing.
Yes, well, she has an English degree for one thing, and she did work as professional editor for a while.
Oh,
And
she would be a very harsh critic then, I would think.
she is quite a fierce critic. So yeah,
That's
she
what you
doesn't
want,
say.
isn't it? That's what you
Yeah,
want. That's perfect. That's
yeah,
the
she
perfect
certainly
person
doesn't.
to have in your corner, isn't it?
Sorry, I missed that.
That's the perfect person to have in your corner. Someone with that
Certainly,
kind
yes.
of
I
thing.
mean, she doesn't say, "Oh, yes, Dad, it's wonderful." She's more likely to say, "Oh, no, what on earth are you doing?" Yeah.
Yeah, it's tricky. It's tricky when people that you know are reviewing your work. Um, it's that emotional connection, isn't it? And my brother, he is very critical of absolutely everything, and people say I'm the same.
Yeah.
Probably part of the family trait, I think. But he said when he'd read Time to Click, um, he says I was halfway through reading it. And I thought, hang on, this is my brother's. This is my brother. This is actually quite good. This is so. So to get a compliment from my brother was sort of quite sort of special, really.
Yeah.
What sort of process do you follow, Martin? Are you sort of like a pantser or a plotter?
I'm very much a pantser, I'm afraid. I write very few notes, and those that I do tend to be on the historical research side.
Yeah,
Most of the story is in my head. Um, I start off with the very bare bones of a plot, and I have a few ideas of, so we say, significant moments that I wish to include, and
Yeah.
then everything else just evolves around that.
And let the characters take over and tell the story for you almost.
Almost, yeah. I mean, I use almost entirely genuine locations, and I try to bring in genuine historical events and sort of blend them with the fiction. And I do like historical accuracy, so those are the pieces that I research most thoroughly.
Got you. I think if I put this across correctly, it's like a half truth, isn't it? If you've got sort of a real truth interspersed with the story, it adds more weight to the story.
Yes, yeah, I think if you can make a seamless join, as it were, then
Yeah.
yes, the whole thing takes on a greater. It's more convincing. It takes on a greater authenticity. Yes.
Yeah, that's it. I think that's the nature of it all, isn't it? Why did you switch? You sort of switch genre really to sort of for the more teenage audience. Why did you do that?
Um, well, as I say, I wrote the 6-book Ghost Hunter series, and that seemed to come to a natural conclusion. But I wasn't quite finished with the characters, and the main character in the Carolyn Hunter stories, which is, say, the baby farmer's ghost, came after that, the young adult series. Carolyn Hunter was a character from the Ghost Hunter series,
Okay,
and
so just
I
spin off.
felt I could
Yeah,
develop her further, and that's how that came to be.
and she was obviously a younger character, so that sort of
Yes,
lent
yes,
it to
indeed.
the teenage market sort of thing. Do you find sales wise that the teenage is a better seller than the adult stuff, or what did you find so far?
Well, so far it's proved more popular, oddly enough. Yeah,
Yeah,
the baby farmer particularly has been better for me. Yes.
yeah. From my point of view, I'd written sort of some adult stuff, sort of sci-fi dramas, sci-fi romances. But I'm currently writing a teenage YA series, sort of a supernatural fantasy. Um, so that's sort of a direction I'm going to sort of split it. You do wonder whether you should use a pen name when you're sort of having a change of genre.
Yeah.
So where's your thoughts on that?
I have considered it, but say in the end I just stayed as me.
Yeah, I suppose it's all fairly similar. I suppose if you're doing sort of one sort of graphic adult sort of novel, maybe you want to separate that. If you're writing children's stuff as well, but I suppose it's sort of it's still a similar genre, isn't it? You're writing in, I guess.
Yes, it's. I mean, I find what I'm writing is fairly difficult to categorize. I mean, it seems
My
these days.
challenge, mate.
Yeah, yeah. It seems these days to fall into the paranormal urban fantasy category. Whereas, I mean, once upon a time, it might have been supernatural thrillers or
Yeah, yeah.
paranormal horror. But yeah, so it does seem to be quite difficult to categorize.
That's it. When you've got an idea for a story, and then you're sort of developing that story, is it wrong not to think, oh well, this has got to fit into this genre? Because the story, sort you write your story, and then am I doing it the wrong way where I'm written my story, and then I'm thinking, right then, what genre does this go into? Is that the wrong way round?
Well, yeah, I don't really know. I mean, I wrote and then sort of looked back and felt rather puzzled and thought, well, yeah, where does it fit? Yeah,
But I think perhaps the best stories, the ones that aren't sort of just written to fit in a bucket, as it were. We know some authors, they're sort of got a very tight storyline, and they just change the characters, change the setting, and it's the same story again and again. And I really struggle to read those. I sort of get about 15 minutes into it, and it's like, no, I've read this before. And I like original stories, and that's what we've all got to push, isn't it? Keep away from the format, over formulaic methods.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. I think as the Americans would say, the cookie cutter story is, yeah, it is too formulaic. Sort of when A plus B always equals C, it as you say, it becomes predictable.
The thing, but some people are comfortable in that area, aren't they? My wife's a typical example, really. She likes Christmas romance films, and
Right.
we know exactly what's going to happen from the very like in the first 5 minutes. It's like, oh, they're the two that are getting together, sort of thing. Like we
Yeah.
know they'll sort of not get on to start with. They'll start to get on. They'll get together. Something will happen, a misunderstanding. They'll break apart, and then it'll all be put right, ready for Christmas and that sort of thing. It's like, but people find comfort, don't they, in a story they expect, perhaps.
Yeah, no, that's certainly true. Yes, there is certainly an element of sort of safety in predictability, which I mean personally, that's not my bag, but people do like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's difficult to. 'Cause like obviously the Mills and Boone. We all know about the Mills and Boone some years ago now, really, but they were all the same story pretty much.
Yeah.
But it was so popular. So, what is the ultimate aim of a writer? Is it to tell their stories or to sell?
I think there has to be a degree of compromise because ultimately, if you're serious about making a living from it, then you have to sell the book.
Yeah,
So therefore, you have to please enough readers that you're going to make money out of it.
yeah. I
I
think,
mean,
and that's the challenge, isn't it, Martin? That gain that traction to be able to sell enough to make it pay for itself.
yeah, yeah,
But
and that's sorry.
I was going to say the marketing aspect. That's a whole new world, isn't it?
Oh yes, yeah. I've been doing this 10 years now, and I was completely unprepared at the beginning for the amount of marketing and the fact that it would take more time than the writing. Yeah, that was just a complete shock.
So what's your marketing plan?
Well, initially it was almost nothing. I just didn't didn't understand it at all. It was an enormous learning curve. The first 12, 18 months, it just overwhelmed me completely. And I say you have a sort of scattergun reaction and try everything and see what works.
What works
More
best for you?
well, I've found a few of the paid options. There are some very good of the websites who you can pay them to market your book, and it does work to a point.
Have you had some
Um,
success on that? I've struggled with that. I my show I put out last week was a book promoter. I'd spoke to every time they contact me. I sort of want to talk to them face to face, and as soon as you get them on a screen and you can see them and start talking to them, they haven't got a clue about anything. It's the language barrier is quite often a problem. There always seems to be a poor internet connection, and they're just
right,
interested in taking some money off you. They don't understand. I think Torn McAllister sort of put it quite nicely when I spoke to him. His first question is, "Have you read my book?"
yeah,
Because if they haven't read this book, then obviously they're not that engaged in promoting it. Because we get that
Yeah.
quite often, don't we? People say, "Oh, we really like your book. We would like to promote it for you," but then they've not read your book when you question them on it.
I know I get probably half a dozen emails or messages on Twitter, as is X now, every day saying, "Oh yes, we'll make you a bestseller in no time." And I say that, as you quite rightly say, they haven't read your book. They don't know anything about your book, and they probably started in the marketing industry the day before yesterday. But they're all
Well,
experts.
I had one young lady on, and I asked her what were her qualifications to promote as marketing, and she didn't even understand the question.
No, I can
And,
believe that. Yeah.
and so there's a lot of them. So can we name the company that you were happy with?
If I could remember it, I would. Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe we'll put it in the description. We'll put it in the description for people to have a look at.
Yes, I would have to go back and have a look. It's say one of the better known website based marketing services.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of these things work on the assumption that you can make a book free on Amazon for the 5-day period and sell other books via that.
Yeah, I
And
think that. Yeah, I like that.
and that does work for me. It doesn't work for everybody,
Well, you've got to have the series set up, haven't you?
basically.
You've got to have the series set up, and I think I held off for adverts for a long time because I wanted to make sure I'd got a catalogue that people could look at. So
Yeah.
if people buy one of my books on a discount or for free, perhaps, and they like that, then they're gonna buy the others. But some comments I've had from people I've chatted to on here, including Jen McLeod, is a great had a great interview, couple of great interviews with her, to be honest. If you sell a book for free, people will wait for the next time the next one's free and that sort of thing, and they can perhaps not engage with it in the same way as if they're paid for it. Do you not completely agree with that?
That's true. There are enormous problems with that. But the other side of that coin is an enormous number of people who are looking for books to read will not pay even 99 pence for a book. But they will, however, download a free book and then read the rest of your series on Kindle Unlimited. And therefore you'll get paid for the page read.
Yeah. Do you get a lot of pages read on Kindle Unlimited?
That in the last 12 months, that's been the bulk of my income.
Really?
Yeah.
My Kindle Unlimited seems to have disappeared. I was getting quite a few reads on that, and it's just disappeared. I just don't know how to get it going again. I've done okay with sales. I say okay. Obviously, I'm not sort of JK or anything, but I don't think I've had any Kindle pages read for probably 3-4 months.
No, well, mine's been almost a complete reverse of that, because in the previous 12 months, the sales were steady and the Kindle Unlimited almost vanished. And now it's sort of flipped the other way. There's not so many sales, but the Kindle Unlimited read has been considerably higher.
So how do I get my Kindle Unlimited going again then?
Well, as I say, I found that by doing the free book promotion, and then it's become this sort of knock on to the rest of the series, and the other books have gone on to the Kindle Unlimited, to the page read.
I was thinking that for the YA series I've been writing, I've written the 8 episodes. I've edited the first 2. In fact, I've edited the first 4, but I've just got sort of beta reads waiting for beta reads on a couple of them. So what I was thinking was to do the first one as a free book, the first episode as a free book, and then 99p for each one. They're like 30-minute episodes, like quick reads sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I was talking to Jen, and Jen said perhaps I should get most of the series finished before I put the first one on, because if you put the first one on and the next one's not on for 8 weeks or something, then you've lost the momentum. People won't start a series until they see the series is there.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
You'd agree with that? I had just published the first one, but I've sort of unpublished it to sort of wait till I've got the others in place. Now, the other angle, of course, is I would like to take it to TV, because I think it's set for TV. So I'm sort of looking for agents and that sort of area for that. Have you gone down that route, looking for agents and traditional publishing?
Not in the world of television, no. But I have in the last month actually gone into traditional publishing.
Yeah.
I as a almost afterthought, I pitched The Baby Farmer's Ghost to a traditional publisher, and after a very long wait, they showed an interest in it and asked for sample chapters, which I provided, and then they asked for the full thing, which of course I provided. And then I had an email saying, we like it, but it's completely different to anything we've seen before or that we actually publish, and we're not sure that we want it. We don't know really what to do with it.
Well, after they've read it all, wouldn't they work that out from a chapter?
Well, this is basically what happened anyway. So we had a bit of a discussion about it, and they agreed to take it ultimately. So I said, well, you do know that there's a sequel, being me.
Well, you would have absolutely keep it going, yeah.
Yeah. And so they said, well, you'd better send us a sequel, which they also agreed to take.
Yeah.
And so long story short, they've also agreed to take the Ghost Hunter series as well. So what started
traction then?
Yeah. So what started out as a pitch for the one young adult book has now become an 8-book deal. And starting next May, the Ghost Hunter series will be republished and repackaged. So, but the flip side of that coin is they're no longer available on Amazon. So that's knocked my my income right.
Yeah, I suppose quite often with the traditional deals like that, they sort of just give you a price per book they give you, and but are they doing some of the marketing for you, or I suppose they
doing all of the
aren't they?
marketing. Yeah, no, it's it all falls to them now, which is nice.
Yeah, that's one to get to, isn't it? If you can get to a position where somebody else is taking that nightmare away.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the challenge. Final things. What's your biggest challenge with writing?
Well, I know a lot of people would say writer's block, but it's something that I'm very happy to say I've never had.
Yeah.
I always seem to I've maybe struggled a few times to get round things, but I've found that sort of patience and perseverance, I've just been able to plow through, and it always seems to come out right in the end. So with regards to the actual writing, I've been lucky in that respect. I've just been able to keep going. Yeah.
And what's your guilty pleasure? That's the final question for you.
Oh, that's a difficult one. Yeah, I don't really know guilty pleasure. I enjoy walking in the dark with the dogs. That's quite odd, I suppose.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
quite like the your dogs of they're quite cryptic kind of names, aren't they? The dogs, Shadow and Raven. Now
yeah,
that is sort of that sounds like characters from one of your books.
yeah. Well, the only reason that they're not in here with us now is the fact that the door doesn't open out inwards. Raven's out on the landing.
That's it. Keep it quiet. Well, they've kept quiet for us, haven't they? So that's been
Yeah,
good.
I
Brilliant. So I think, as we say, success takes many forms, but getting traditionally published is definitely a big tick. Competition winning as well is another massive tick. But I think even publishing your own story is a success in itself, isn't it?
yeah, certainly. Yeah. No, I say it's say 10 years of independently publishing, and there's no overnight success, that's for sure. I mean, as I'm sure you'd agree,
Yeah,
it's a grind, and you've
yeah,
got to, if you're serious about it, you've got to stick with it, and
yeah.
ultimately you do see results, but you really do have to persevere.
That's it. And it's listening to feedback from people and keeping that will to continue. It's that tenacity to keep going.
Yeah,
Martin, this has been great talking to you, and congratulations on winning the competition, Michelle Cobbett's competition, of course.
thank you.
I think I might put myself a little entry in, see what I do,
Yeah.
and we'll see what kind of comments I get. That would be an interesting one. Right then, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and thanks, Martin. That's been excellent.